Hi, my name is Danielle. I'm going to be your nursing student. I'm going to close the curtain to provide some privacy. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to do a neurological assessment on you that's going to test your cranial reflexes, your motor functions, and coordinations. Do you have any problems with that?
No, ma'am.
And you're comfortable?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can you tell me your name and date of birth?
Crystal Ellison, 1281.
Okay, and then can you tell me who the president is?
Biden.
And then do you know where you're at?
At my house.
Okay, so she is alert and oriented because of the place, time, and location. And her speech is distinct and clear. Next, I'm going to check your cranial nerve number 1, and that's the olfactory. So I'm going to have you close one nose and breathe in, and then close the other one and breathe in. And now I'm going to have her close her eyes, and I'm going to have her close one there, and then check her smell.
Vicks.
And then the other one.
Vicks.
Okay. Next, we're gonna, so that her cranial 1 olfactory nerve is intact. And I'm going to move to cranial number 2, which is going to check her optic nerve. And I'm gonna have her stand up. We're gonna pretend there's a chart, and she's gonna close one eye, and she's gonna read off whatever letters that she can see, and then stop at that line, and then vice versa. And we're gonna say that her vision's a 20/20, and that her optic nerve is intact. We're gonna move to cranial nerve, you can sit down, cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6, and this is your oculomotor, your trochlear, and abducens nerve, and this is going to test the movement of the eyes of the cardinal directions of gaze. So without moving your head, just follow my pen. And there is no extra ocular weakness noted, and no stagnant, and so cardinal nerves 3, 4, and 6 are intact. Moving on to cranial nerve number 5 is the trigeminal nerve, and I'm gonna have her close her eyes, and I'm gonna test different parts of her face, and she's gonna tell me where she's at.
Right forehead. Right cheek. Right chin. Left forehead. Left cheek. Left chin.
And her facial nerve sensation is intact. Next, I'm going to have her clench her jaw, and I'm going to pull down to check her strength. And I cannot move her jaw, so her jaw strength is intact. Next is... Huh? 5 out of 5. Next is her cranial nerve number 7, and this is her facial nerve. I'm going to have her smile, and then frown, and raise her eyebrows. And I noticed that her facial nerves are intact and are good. Next is cranial nerve number 8, and that's her acoustic nerve. I'm going to have what? No, just kidding. I'm going to test her strength of her eyes. I'm going to have them shut, and we're going to lift up, and she cannot, so they are intact. Next is cranial nerve number 8, and that's her acoustic nerve. I'm going to have her close her left ear, and I'm going to whisper,
Flower.
and she repeated it correctly. And then her right ear, chair.
Chair.
And she repeated it correctly. So her cranial nerve number 8, which is the acoustic nerve, is intact. Next is her cranial nerve number 9, and that is her glossopharyngeal nerve, and this is going to test her swallow. So I'm going to have her close her mouth and swallow. And her cranial nerve number 9, glossopharyngeal neck, is intact. Next is cranial nerve number 10, and this is her vagus nerve. I'm going to have her open up her mouth, stick out her tongue, and say, ah. And her uvula moves with phonation, so it is intact. Cranial nerve number 11 is her spinal accessory nerve, so I'm going to check her shoulder shrugs and her strength. And then I'm going to have her press on my hand and vice versa. And her spinal accessory nerve is intact. Next is her cranial nerve number 12, and this is her hypoglossal nerve. I'm going to have her stick out her tongue, and we're going to check her the rotation of the midline, and it is intact. Cranial nerve number, that's it. Now we're going to move on to reflexes. So I'm going to check her tricep reflex. I'm going to hold her arm out and hit, and forward down, and left, and hit. And that her tricep reflex is at a 2+. Next is her bicep. I'm going to hold her arm out, and I'm going to hit, and vice versa, and hit, and her bicep reflex is a 2+. Next is her brachioradialis nerve, and I'm going to hold her thumb and hit on her wrist, and move to the next one, and hit, and her brachioradialis is at a 2+. Next is her patella reflex. Her leg would naturally be relaxed, and I would hit right below the kneecap, and then the left, and then her plantar reflex is at a 2+. Next is her coordination. No. The Achilles tendon. I'm going to hold her foot, if you can naturally hold her foot up, and then I'm going to hit the back of her ankle to check her Achilles tendon, and then hit the back, and that is also a 2+. Now moving on to coordination, I'm going to have her stand up. She is going to close her eyes and finger to nose. She's going to start slow and then go fast, and very good. And her smooth coordination movement was there. And now her next is her heel to her shin, and she's going to press down. Usually this will be in a supine position, but right now we're here sitting and heel to shin. It's going to rub down and then left, and that is perfect, and it's smooth and coordinated. Next, I'm going to have her do the Romberg test. She's going to stand up. She's going to close her eyes for 20 seconds with her hands by her side, and we're checking to see if there's any swaying, any abnormal movements, and we're going to pretend that's all good, and her balance is there, and there's no sway, so her Romberg's test is negative. All right, I'll have you sit down. Now I'm going to check her motor, and I'm going to hold her hands, and she's going to squeeze, and there was, a strong grip, so there, yep, that was out of 5 out of 5. I had to think about that one. And then now where I'm going to have her test her dorsiflexion. I'm going to press down, and I'm pressing down as her foot is lifting up. And then on the left, the same. And then now I'm going to do the plantar flexion. She presses down and presses down. And then that is also as a 5 out of 5 with her strength. And now sensory. I'm going to have a dull and sharp, and I'm going to have her close her eyes, and I'm going to rub arm,
dull, sharp, dull, sharp, dull, sharp, sharp, dull.
And that was, she was able to tell the difference between sharp and dull sensation. Next, I'm gonna have her close her eyes and I'm gonna check her movement with her fingers and her toes. She's gonna tell me the movement of I'm moving them.
Up, side, down. Up, side, down.
And then I'm gonna do the same with her toes.
Up, side, down. Up, side, down.
Yep. So her sense of position bilaterally was there. And this ends the neurological assessment. Did you feel comfortable during this whole time?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, so here's your call light and here's your belongings.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'm gonna wash my hands and that's it.